Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Emily Sophia, and I'm going to be walking you guys through the latest episode of Bates Motel. This week it is Season 2, Episode 6, Plunge. So spoiler alert before we plunge into the mad business of this evening's latest chapter. And I have to say that I really dug this episode. And again, it kind of seemed like it was a little, not necessarily filler material for much of the episode's duration, but more of this sort of transitioning into the major endgame events to come right up into the last 5 minutes after that final commercial break. From the driving test on, I mean, we are hitting it, okay? So without further ado, let us get to it. I also discovered today that Bates Motel has been renewed for a 3rd season. So I had no doubt in my mind. I mean, based on what I'd heard, it'd been getting pretty solid ratings. Ratings for NBC's Hannibal have been going up as well. So if I can get all my serial killer show ducks in a row, then I will be a happy little lady. I don't know about you people, but this is cause for celebration. So, let's talk all the fun little arcs of this episode. I have to say that, you know, kind of on more of the lackluster end of the spectrum, we've got what's going on with Dylan, and again, it's weird because the boss woman, lady friend, whom he encounters at the hospital and who takes him into her care and, you know, charges him with, you know, responsibility for Zane and his end of the business. All of that, she doesn't, to my knowledge, she hasn't had a name that's actually been stated in the show. Because I looked it up on IMDb. I try and make sure that I know, like, all the character names before I actually make reviews, so I'm not hopelessly asking my camera and looking for answers while I'm on the fly, but she's just shown as Zane's sister, so good stuff, you know, really getting into the thick of it. But yeah, I mean, I feel really bad for Dylan and also frustrated that he has cut himself off from his family. I mean, granted, they've been pretty busy at the Bates residence. They've definitely got their issues going on, but there's also Dylan's end of the spectrum where he's shutting them out. He's isolating himself. He believes that all that they need or have is each other when he has been an integral part of the family unit throughout the past couple seasons. And he is basically just denying himself the ability to connect and to understand himself in any kind of healthy way. So he's just pretty much rolling with the punches and just kind of letting himself go as far into things in the weed business as he possibly can, because honestly, at this point, what else is there for him? At least that's his mentality, and it really sucks because he is quite a decent fellow and character, and I want more for him. At the same time, the further he is from Norman and Norma, probably, like, ironically enough, it almost seems like he's safer. I mean, he's working in this kind of seedy weed industry, but at the same time, we know very clearly the trajectory of things with the Bateses, so it's kind of like pick the lesser of two evils, you know, which poison can you stomach the most? What's gonna take you down the most slowly? That's really morbid, but I mean, when all is said and done, what isn't on the show in this universe? It's pretty much where everything leads. So, you know, kind of, I predicted that they were going to end up betting each other and having this little thing, and, you know, so that was a little bit predictable on that end of the spectrum, and again, somewhat lackluster, but I mean, we kind of have to think of what's going on behind that and why Dylan is in the situation in this place. So, you know, I think it's going to be like a power struggle with Zane as Dylan recovers and returns to things, and now he's got this intimate relationship with Zane's sister, and he's trying not to let Zane know that she's like, dude, you're the boss, but the secret boss. And so that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And what's going to be the catalyst that's going to bring him back into his family's lives? Is he going to find out what's been going on with Norman and take interest and try and intervene and inevitably get himself hurt in some way? I mean, it's like we want him to be back with his family, but we know that things just aren't. It's pretty much all downhill from here. So what do we really want at the end of the day? Just to throw our characters into one another's lives so that they may ruin them? I guess so. I mean, call me a sadist, but that's pretty much what I'm asking for. At any rate, so we've also got Norma's end of the spectrum. Now she's getting involved in the White Pine Bay political scene, and she takes the council seat like the badass babe that she is, and we all knew that she was gonna rock it. Namely because of the people whom she knows and has encountered over the course of her trying to figure out how to stop the bypass. Now, my brain is starting to connect all the pieces here. I mean, feel free to let me know what your personal theories are, as I am very much interested in those as well. But I think that Christine and George and Nick Ford, I feel like they're all a part or different parts of the same machine. They're all cogs that are twisting together and trying to position Norma in the right place. I mean, this might be going a little bit conspiracy status, but the fact that Nick Ford is visibly irked by Norma's desire to break ties with him after the death of the former councilman. She feels like she's been implicated in things with filing the environmental impact report and just kind of playing her little role in what she's now starting to realize is a scheme, because crazy though our beloved Norma Bates may be, she is far from stupid. So she knows, and she's trying to back out with as much awkwardness and grace, the two of those intermingled as Norma always does. And, you know, Nick's kind of like, all right, you know, he's trying to drop the hints that, like, he knows that she knows, and it's the whole pins and needles game. And then when Christine randomly shows up out of the blue after that encounter and is like, hey, seat's open, that was so weird, finding out about his death and all that, you should totally go where he was. And I mean, just that in and of itself, we've got the red lights flashing here. Something's not right about that. It's like, oh dude, he died. You should totally go and be in that position in which he was, you know, just saying. I'm not saying that that's always a weird thing, but just the immediacy of the turnaround, you know, and the fact that at Norma's interviews, well, in which she was adorably nervous, I love my Norma. She's a very sensitive soul. At times, she is an incredible powerhouse, and she knows exactly what she wants. But at the same time, she's a very sincere person, and it matters where she's passionate. This very vulnerable side of her shows through. And I think that's a part of her character that I've really come to love, and it's something that is going to make me really upset when Mother 100% takes over in Norman, and that's just gonna be sad. But we'll see where things go. I'm getting ahead of myself. I can't help it. I'm all kinds of paranoid. I've been watching like too much Game of Thrones lately. I basically just feel like I'm going to lose everyone at any given time. But anyways, the fact that the guy who Norman was interviewing with, constantly he was referring to the connections that she had and the fact that these people spoke well of her. Now the fact that despite Norma's trying to back off from Nick and he still gives her this really good reference, I feel like they're putting her exactly where they want her. And why that might be, we'll see. Things are slowly but surely unfolding over time, and we want to be excited for Norma in this situation, but it all feels very staged. And the fact that her skills and her knowledge are downplayed as compared to her connections, that always reeks of political corruption, and we know that that's White Pine Bay's bread and butter. So best of luck to you, Norma, as you confront that and the encroaching insanity of your beloved son. Yeah, so it's like you feel good for her, you also feel bad. That's pretty much everything in the show. And then we got some more nice, meaningful Emma moments in this episode, because with the last episode, it was more of her and Cupcake Boy. And unfortunately, that cupcake is starting to grow a little bit stale to my taste, just because everything is doomed, right? So why be happy about or supportive of anything in this show when you know that it's going down? But I don't know. In this episode, we didn't really see any real indication of Gunner being a less than upstanding dude, aside from his weed dealing, I guess. But you know, so she and Gunner encounter Norman and Cody at the river. Awkward double date commences, and then peer pressure, teenagerhood, living that life. And then Emma's life is put in danger when, sort of per the urging of Cody and of her own desire to maybe impress Norman, I should say, she decides to go ahead and make the plunge, after which the episode is named, and which results in her nearly losing consciousness. Now, Norman's reaction in this scene is a most fascinating and disturbing twist, which I saw a sneak peek of the scene, so I knew that it was coming. But it was really interesting to see the circumstances around it, because it was really more Emma's personal decision to do what she did. At least I felt, and you know, sort of her trying to compete with everyone else around her and sort of generally kind of not necessarily show off, but really it's more about fitting in for Emma. I think that's more of what she strives for than showing off per se. But what I thought was going to happen based on the sneak peek of the scene is that I thought that Cody was going to push Emma off the edge. And really, so the way that Norman reacts, of course, is very much Mother-esque. And the word, you know, you have to pay really close attention to the wording that Norman uses when he sort of goes into this alternate state of consciousness. And not just the blackouts, but the alternate state in which he speaks. You know, because what he tells Cody is that not everyone is just her little play toy. And so that seems to reflect almost maybe his own subconscious insecurity that he is being manipulated by her. And if we look at this situation as a little sneak peek of Mother, then it would basically be the side of Norman's persona that sees her as someone dangerous and exploitative, is that a word? See, I can like picture it in my mind, and I think it's a word, but you know, someone who exploits and takes advantage, and he distrusts the kind of power that Cody has over him and over others, and that really seems to come through strongly in the scene as well. But there's all kinds of ways to interpret the slow but steady breakdown of Norman Bates, so feel free to cast out your thoughts on that situation as well. It was, you know, and then immediately afterwards he goes into full-blown, just completely and utterly comforting to Emma, which really started to arouse some older emotions in my heart that I had tucked away, and sort of reminded me of my, you know, my desire for Norman and Emma to be together. But we know that with his dear old mum in the picture, there's a little bit too much chemistry going on there for him to have anything truly sustainable with anyone else's own age. Much less brunettes. I'm just saying. I can't feel too bad for myself, I guess. But anyways, so going back to Emma, of course, later on, Cody is a little bit terrified of Norman in this instance, because, well, she knows that Emma just isn't decision to jump off the ledge was more kind of her own prerogative. And the fact that she got the full brunt of Norman's rage, it kind of sends off some warning signals in her head, despite everything that she's ignored up until this point, including Norma's admonition that she keep the booze away from Mr. Bates. That was a fantastic scene as well. Norma's just like, out, I'm in, all right, this is what we're gonna do. That was really quite choice. Those are the Norma moments for which I personally live, okay? that was a great scene earlier on. But anyways, fast forward, Cody's starting to pick up on the vibes. The vibes being the sinister things within the beast that is becoming a little bit more friendly and externalized over time. She comes to Emma knowing that she's consistently blown Norma off, and so there's really no chance that she can have a meaningful dialogue with Norma. That and Cody just doesn't really have healthy relationships with adults as it is, so she's more comfortable approaching someone who's close to Norman, but not necessarily the mother unit. Because basically, when it comes to Norman and Norma, they're pretty much trying to, like, kill off each other's love interests, so perhaps on a subconscious level, she is sensing that danger. But she goes to Emma, she drops the bomb, Emma in turn drops the bomb, Norma drops the bomb, and Norman drops the bomb. It's just this consistent, like, the energy was just flowing from one person to the next, and it kept mutating and shifting as it went, ultimately manifesting itself in the form of a less than delighted Norman, who is feeling the tightening of, well, at least what he perceives as the tightening of the umbilical cord. And really, unfortunately for Norma, when she figures, when she finds this piece of information out from Emma over the phone, she has no real context for it, and she just takes everything at face value. That's another thing that's interesting about Norma, is the fact that she really is a smart woman who I think is very capable of reading into subtext. But when she hears anything about Norman, automatically she is just on one side of the spectrum or the violent other, so she doesn't realize that there are certain contexts in which Norman seems to experience these blackouts, such as the scene where Norman and Cody stop by Cody's house before they head to the river, and her dad comes home. She doesn't want to deal with him. They hide in the closet. Norman has that flashback to when he was a child, hiding with Norma from his original father, whom he later on killed in arguably defending Norma, but also going that further step to that violent side that is starting to manifest itself. And so, again, there are certain triggers for Norman, and then even we see that same kind of trigger later on, very overtly, when Cody's father attacks her. And I mean, it's one of those fine line situations where you put yourself in Norman's position as, your own self. If you see your friend, your girlfriend getting whooped up on by her dad, then obviously you're going to intervene. There is abuse happening to somebody that you care about. Even though Norman's already worked up and frustrated about the fact that his mother's control has tightened all the more because of something that Cody revealed. Regardless, I mean, all that aside, there is this immediate situation that needs to be dealt with somehow. But it certainly doesn't help that the serial killer within is twisting and turning. So it's another one of those situations that's reminiscent of the way that Norman dealt with his own father in the blender, or however that went back in the first season when we saw that through flashbacks. In this situation, it is a mortally wounding push down the stairs, I'm gonna guess that he could pretty much be toast at this point by just the sheer way that he went down. So that's kind of the territory that we're moving into for the next episode, is dealing with the blackouts, with what's transpired in this situation. Again, I don't think it's something that Norman's going to get pegged for, because Cody can vouch for him and say that it was defense. Because to anyone else looking at the situation, that's what it would be. But we know the state of mind in which Norman first showed up, and all these other pushes and nudges that he's had earlier on in the episode too. So inevitably, as he is tested, we're gonna have to see what comes out. Exactly, because I dare say that we've still got a pretty little ways to go before the story runs its course and we find ourselves at the beginning of Psycho, or wherever things are going to lead. But I don't know, man. Things are pretty sketch-tastic at this point. And I feel so heartbroken for Norma in that final scene where she's driving with Norman, and when he whips out of the car, nearly forcing them to wreck, and just like careens out and is like, "Go home, mother." The look on his face was just so... I was trying to read it, you know, because it's like, are we looking at mother versus mother here? Or is this just angry Norman? I mean, again, all these fractures, the rifts between the Norman that we see on the outside and this alternate self, they're not very well defined at this point. And I think that's not something that the show's gonna let us in on or try to explain too much, I hope. Because part of the mystery, or the mystery of Norman Bates, what's really driving him and what all the forces are that lead him to become who he's going to be, that's what really gives the show its power. So I hope that they don't try to explain too much, because if we figure everything out too early on, it's just, from there on, we just kind of are letting the clock run, you know? That's kind of what it seems like to me. So we'll see though. And just Norma's reaction, this complete and utter helplessness. She goes into her soft little baby voice, and she's like, no, where are you going? It's this kind of, there's so many sides to Norma and so many different ways in which she tackles things, but in this situation, it is this complete and utter, shit, I didn't want to do this. I want to give Norman this opportunity to be happy, because she knows that she just got this opportunity to be happy when she discovered that she got the council seat. And now she has to take something away from Norman that she wasn't intending to, but it is that knee-jerk reaction. And for Norma, there is no kind of stopping that. So I feel really devastated for them both. And we'll have to see where exactly things go from here, but we are on pins and needles. Only very shortly before this, where we see, I think it was Norma who tackled Norman on the bed when she got her happy news, and then when he was still sitting down on the bed, he kind of like grabbed her, almost like he was gonna bring her back down. Yeah, so we got some more of those good scenes. Just the things that you live for when it comes to this show. The things that you do not want to want. And that, it was so funny because my mom ended up watching this episode with me. I think she's like trying to prove how crazy I am for the shows that I watch by starting to watch them herself. It's, I see what you're doing there, mother. You are coming down the rabbit hole with me. But, yeah. Incest 4 days. 4 days. I mean, I've been dismantling like crazy all of the physical scenes between Norman and Norma and what their body language symbolizes about their, you know, the progression in their journey with each other. you know, just kind of reading between the lines and the squeezes and intimate caresses and stuff. What's really unfolding here? Yeah. But anyways, I feel as though I don't know what to think about Cody's fate. I feel like it's distinctly possible that we could lose another major minor character by the end of the season. Curious to see what Romero's ongoing involvement is going to be. Also really awkward scene earlier when he's about to take off in his little suit and, you know, and he tells Norma that she can call him Alex, and they have this little exchange. And then, now I think I heard this scene correctly. We had somebody over for dinner and everybody was talking, and so I might have misheard it, but based on what I heard, Alex Romero, I like calling him Romero. I don't know, it strikes me. That's the name that I have attached to his eyelashes, you know, but he says that he can see Norma from her window. Was that what they were talking about? I don't know if I was just imposing a creepy conversation over something else that was said, but judging by the awkward eye contact thereafter, I feel like that was probably what was said. If I was wrong, correct me. If not, feel free to comment. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a little bit of foreboding for the relationship between Norma and Norma as things progress. The tension has been upped most intensely. At this point, Norman is pretty resentful, but again, you know, based on what Emma told Cody, was that he's very sensitive and emotional guy. So he has these really quick switches in his head. So, and especially now that he's going to have to be dealing with the aftermath of what happened to Cody's dad. We'll see what happens to that relationship, but I feel like this situation could present the opportunity for Dylan to re-enter. You know, especially if he's even remotely concerned about what's going on with his brosif. And what else? There's a lot of really neat scenes in this episode. Again, I smell conspiracy. That's what I'm calling right now for the Norma situation, and we'll have to see what exactly becomes of her power. And as she's trying to deal with what's happening with Norman, we'll figure out more what his triggers are all about and how he's kind of redefining his relationships with Emma and Cody and Norma. And yeah, that's kind of the basic gist of where things went this week. So thank you super much for watching. It has been a pleasure as always. I cannot wait for week 7. It's been a wonderful season, and hey, we've got another one in the works, so be ready for that. Be ready to have your souls re-devastated in 2015. I know that I will be. So, you guys take care, leave all your thoughts, fill in the blanks that I have left for you to fill. And as always, I'll be back before you know it.